Good morning. I've created a precarious tower for you this morning. The word precarious means uncertain or dangerously likely to fall or collapse. Like this ball. This tennis ball is precariously balanced on top of the paper towel roll, which is balanced on the plate, which is balanced on the glass. At any moment, this ball could easily topple. It's in a precarious situation. There might be times when we feel like we're also in a precarious situation. And not because we're balancing on top of a paper towel roll, balanced on a plate, balanced on a glass. Although we are the ball in this particular example. Maybe you find yourself in a situation where you've broken something, maybe by accident or through carelessness or even on purpose. And then your parents ask you if you know what has happened, or they say, "Did you do this?" And you have two options. You can lie and say, "No," or you can tell the truth and admit that you're responsible. On the one hand, telling the truth is the right thing to do, but you might be worried about getting into trouble. On the other hand, telling a lie might keep you out of trouble, but it isn't the right thing to do, and it will weigh on your heart. Or maybe you find yourself in a situation where your friends are asking you to do something that you know you shouldn't. And you find yourself in the precarious situation of needing to decide whether you should follow along with your friends and be accepted or fit in, or if you shouldn't and potentially be teased or left out. We don't have to look very hard in the Bible to find other people in precarious situations trying to determine which way to turn. Daniel in the lion's den is a very popular story about a precarious situation, and we learn about it in the Old Testament. Daniel, whose faith and honesty and hard work helped him to become very important to the king, also caused people to be jealous of him. The men who were jealous knew that Daniel was Jewish, but they lived in Babylon, which was a place where the king and the officials and most people weren't. They worshipped other gods. And so these jealous men, who were looking for a way to get Daniel out of the picture, convinced the king to make a law that anyone who prayed to gods other than theirs, or to any man other than the king, should be thrown into the lion's den. And so Daniel found himself in the precarious situation of needing to choose between following God and getting thrown into a pit of lions, or abandoning his faith and living safely. Now here's the twist in the story. When the king heard that Daniel had not changed his practice and had continued to pray to God, and therefore was going to get thrown in a pit of lions, he tried to change the rule. The king liked Daniel and didn't want anything to happen to him. But unfortunately, even the bad law couldn't be changed. So into the lion's den went Daniel, and the king was so upset that he stayed up all night worrying, and the next morning went to the pit and called down to Daniel. And Daniel called back up to the king and said that an angel had closed the mouths of the lions, and that he had been kept safe because God had found him to be innocent. God had known that Daniel's faith was so strong that he had protected him, and Daniel had found his faith to be so important that it was worth risking everything for. When the king heard this story, he realized that God's love was powerful and that his kingdom would never end and that God would protect all of his people. Daniel was faced with a precarious situation, but instead of choosing what was easy, to stop praying to God and to abandon his faith so that he could avoid being tossed into the lion's den, he chose what was right. When we are faced with a precarious situation, when we are asked to choose between what seems easy and what is right, we can remember Daniel. Faith allows us to trust that God will take care of us. And if we follow and do what we know is right, then we are doing God's will, and we are following God's plan. So that no matter what happens, we will land safely in God's care. Because He has a plan for us. And if we follow His will, He won't lead us astray. In fact, we will find ourselves exactly where we are supposed to be.